The neon lights flickered strangely above Times Square. Pedestrians moved quickly, but one figure stood still. His gaze followed a small jewelry kiosk across the street. He felt a strange tension in his chest. The air smelled of hot pretzels and gasoline fumes. A distant siren wailed somewhere beyond the crowd. The man adjusted his coat collar nervously. Something about the street felt unusually empty tonight. Footsteps echoed sharply on the polished pavement. A loud honk made him jump and glance around. People laughed and shouted, oblivious to his presence. His eyes scanned every passerby with unnatural intensity. The glittering advertisements reflected in his dark sunglasses. He could smell sweat mixed with roasted nuts and coffee. The kiosk displayed sparkling watches under bright LED lights. A young woman rearranged bracelets with distracted precision. Her movements seemed too mechanical to him. The man stepped closer, pretending to admire a watch. He felt his heartbeat thump loudly in his ears. A sudden wind carried the smell of rain and trash. His hand brushed against the glass, cold and smooth. The woman glanced up and smiled nervously at him. Something about her smile triggered a fleeting memory. He remembered a night 5 years ago, eerily similar. The memory made his stomach twist uncomfortably. He forced himself to focus on the present moment. The crowd felt like it was closing in around him. A bus screeched past, shaking the nearby pavement. A dollar bill fluttered in the air, landing near his shoe. The scent of popcorn filled the space briefly. He crouched slightly to retrieve the bill, pretending clumsiness. A man in a black hoodie walked past quickly. The hooded figure glanced at him with piercing eyes. Something about the glance made his skin prickle. He knew the figure had noticed more than it seemed. A taxi skidded by, splashing dirty water onto the curb. He wiped his shoe and straightened his coat again. The young woman was now staring at him curiously. Her bracelets jingled softly as she fidgeted nervously. He moved one step closer, still pretending interest. His pulse raced faster than he could control. The figure in the hoodie had disappeared into the crowd. A child screamed, somewhere, quickly muffled by a parent. The man's mind raced, imagining possible witnesses everywhere. The kiosk's lights reflected in puddles on the street. He could taste the metallic tang of fear in his mouth. A subway rumble shook the ground beneath him slightly. People rushed by, oblivious to the tension in the air. He leaned closer to the jewelry case, examining the watches. One particular watch caught his eye, shining too brightly. The woman adjusted it slightly, oblivious to his stare. His fingers twitched, craving possession without thinking fully. A car alarm blared suddenly, making everyone jump back. He cursed under his breath, annoyed by the interruption. The hooded figure reappeared briefly near a corner. Their eyes locked, and a shiver ran down his spine. He felt exposed despite the crowd pressing around him. The woman picked up a tray of rings to adjust. The man's gaze followed every movement obsessively. A pigeon cooed loudly nearby, startling him unexpectedly. The smell of fried food and urine mixed in the street. He clenched his jaw, trying to ignore sensory overload. The neon lights painted red and blue streaks across the pavement. A man laughed loudly, holding a phone and taking pictures. The hooded figure lingered across the street silently. Something about the posture hinted at danger, subtle and sharp. The man's hand brushed the cool metal of the case again. He imagined the sound it might make if lifted quickly. A busker played a saxophone nearby, adding eerie ambience. Notes floated in the air, haunting and beautiful at once. The woman's bracelet jingled again, more deliberately this time. His eyes narrowed, focusing on every subtle motion. The wind shifted, carrying distant screams from a nearby alley. He froze, unsure if it was real or imagined. A vendor shouted at a customer, breaking the tense pause. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. The crowd ebbed and flowed like waves on a restless sea. The neon advertisements blinked with promises he did not want. The hooded figure vanished again, leaving a void of tension. The metallic tang of fear lingered stronger than before. He noticed a small surveillance camera above the kiosk. Its lens reflected light, like an unblinking eye. The child from before ran past him, screaming again. The man's attention snapped back to the jewelry case. The watch still gleamed unnaturally under the LED lights. He imagined it on his wrist, impossible and thrilling. A trash can rattled behind him, making him flinch. He turned slowly, pretending to look at nothing unusual. The hooded figure's shadow crossed the far wall silently. His stomach twisted as a cold realization washed over him. The woman picked up another bracelet and hummed softly. Every sound seemed amplified, every movement suspicious and dangerous. He stepped back slightly, reassessing the crowded area. The neon signs flickered violently, casting strange shadows across faces. A taxi horn blared directly behind him, echoing in his skull. He felt sweat bead on his forehead despite the cold air. The metallic smell of a nearby grate filled his nostrils. The watch in the kiosk continued to shine hypnotically. The crowd moved around him like ghosts, oblivious to tension. The hooded figure's eyes seemed to pierce through his very soul. He realized the figure had been observing him from multiple angles. The thought made his heartbeat accelerate uncontrollably. A distant scream echoed again, barely audible yet piercing. He glanced at the jewelry case one last time, entranced. The woman shifted slightly, as if sensing something wrong. The neon lights reflected in her eyes unnaturally bright. The man's instincts screamed danger he could not name. He stepped back into the crowd, trying to vanish unnoticed. A car door slammed nearby, startling everyone briefly. The hooded figure was gone, leaving an eerie emptiness. His hand itched for the watch, craving and terrifying at once. He could not shake the feeling of being followed. A subway rumbled beneath the city, shaking the pavement slightly. The smell of wet asphalt and pretzels mixed uncomfortably. He realized he had been standing too close for too long. Every sound, every flicker of light now seemed threatening. The crowd's laughter felt distant, hollow, and unreal. He adjusted his coat, trying to appear casual and normal. The watch still gleamed in his mind, impossible to resist. The hooded figure had vanished into shadows but left a mark. A pigeon cooed again, oddly loud, almost accusing. He swallowed hard, feeling the city itself closing in on him. Something had shifted in the air, tension thick and unrelenting. He realized he was no longer alone. Someone else was near. A sudden gust of wind rattled the signs above the street. The man's pulse raced, knowing something was about to happen. The watch called to him, dangerous and impossible, shimmering still. He stepped lightly, eyes darting, senses sharpened to the extreme. The hooded figure vanished into a dark corner unnoticed. The man's pulse still raced violently inside his chest. Neon reflections danced across puddles on the wet pavement. He stepped cautiously, keeping the kiosk in his line of sight. The crowd felt heavier, almost suffocating around him now. A sudden shout from a street vendor drew his gaze briefly. He saw nothing but hurried faces moving past like ghosts. The metallic scent of wet asphalt and exhaust filled his nose. His hands itched for the watch still gleaming in his mind. A subway rumble beneath his feet vibrated slightly, unsettling him. The hooded figure reappeared, this time closer to the jewelry kiosk. The man froze, every instinct screaming danger and urgency. The young woman arranging bracelets glanced nervously in his direction. Her eyes flickered with unease he could not understand. The hooded figure did not approach the kiosk directly. Instead, they circled, observing from every possible angle silently. The man tried to appear casual, pretending interest in the display. A taxi horn blared, startling pedestrians and momentarily masking tension. He noticed the hooded figure's eyes never left the kiosk or him. The air smelled stronger of fried food, mixed with urine and rain. A distant scream echoed faintly, causing every nerve to tense sharply. The neon lights flickered again, casting strange, twisting shadows on faces. The man's mind raced, imagining possible escape routes through the crowd. A bus screeched to a stop nearby, rattling nearby litter and debris. He realized the crowd's energy had shifted, subtly but unmistakably. The hooded figure crouched slightly, adjusting something hidden under the coat. A flash of metallic glimmer caught his attention briefly in the corner. He could not tell if it was a knife or a reflective token. A group of teenagers laughed loudly, unaware of the tension around them. The man swallowed hard, heart hammering, sweat prickling across his forehead. He noticed a small gap near the kiosk, perfect for quick movement. The hooded figure moved silently, avoiding the neon reflections completely. The smell of roasted chestnuts from a nearby cart mingled with fear. He realized the woman behind the kiosk had stopped moving entirely. Her hands trembled slightly as she arranged a ring on the tray. The man felt a sudden, almost uncontrollable urge to intervene. A car alarm blared, momentarily scattering pigeons across the square. The hooded figure vanished behind a cluster of oversized advertisement boards. The man stepped forward cautiously, every sense sharpened and alert. The sound of footsteps behind him made him spin quickly. No one was there, only shadows stretching across the wet pavement. The neon lights buzzed, flickering with a strange, almost rhythmic pulse. He realized he had left his backpack in a nearby alley. A pungent smell of garbage and damp cardboard lingered from it. The hooded figure reemerged closer to the kiosk's rear side. He noticed subtle scratches along the metal frame, fresh and deep. A distant siren grew louder, causing his chest to tighten uncomfortably. The young woman whispered something under her breath, unseen by others. The man leaned slightly, pretending to examine a bracelet more closely. His fingers brushed the cold glass surface, tracing the edges nervously. The hooded figure crouched again, now closer than ever to the display. He could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. A distant subway train rattled, vibrating the street beneath their feet. He caught a faint metallic scent, stronger than before, unmistakable. The crowd around them seemed to blur, everyone lost in motion. A sudden gust of wind carried trash and loose paper into his face. The hooded figure's gaze met his briefly, sharp, and unnervingly precise. He stepped back instinctively, nearly colliding with a startled tourist. The neon signs reflected violently in puddles at their feet. He realized the watch in the kiosk was now positioned differently. It was slightly off-center, as if someone had touched it recently. The young woman's hands shook visibly, adjusting bracelets almost frantically. He noticed a faint shadow moving behind a nearby advertisement board. The hooded figure seemed to vanish again, leaving no trace of movement. A distant scream echoed faintly almost indistinguishable from city noise. He felt the air tighten around his chest, hard to inhale fully. A faint metallic glint caught his peripheral vision once more. The neon lights flickered, casting chaotic shadows on nearby faces. He sensed someone watching him, closer than he wanted to admit. The man's mind raced, imagining what could happen in the next second. The hooded figure crouched near the back of the kiosk, silently. He could smell a faint hint of smoke, mixed with city grime. A bus rumbled by, shaking the pavement and sending vibrations through him. He noticed a crumpled paper near his foot, fluttering in the wind. The young woman's eyes were wide, staring at something behind him. He turned quickly, heart hammering, but saw only a blurred crowd. The hooded figure moved again, almost imperceptibly, avoiding every light reflection. A distant honk pierced the air, blending strangely with a child's scream. He felt the sudden urge to flee, but his curiosity pinned him still. The metallic tang of fear lingered stronger with every heartbeat. He realized someone had stepped onto the sidewalk behind him, silently. The neon lights reflected in a puddle, twisting the figure's shadow unnaturally. The man's stomach twisted as adrenaline and fear collided sharply. The hooded figure now crouched closer, almost touching the kiosk. He noticed the young woman's hands gripping a tray too tightly. A subway vibration caused a nearby trash can to rattle violently. He sensed the presence of danger, silent but overwhelming. The wind shifted, carrying distant sirens, screams, and city noise together. The neon advertisements flickered violently, casting shifting shadows on the street. The man's gaze returned to the watch, gleaming more hypnotically than before. The hooded figure remained still, an almost living shadow against light. He felt every nerve in his body tense, prepared for action. The young woman whispered again, voice barely audible, trembling from fear. He realized he could not predict what the figure would do next. A car door slammed suddenly, startling pedestrians and pigeons alike. The metallic scent grew stronger, mingling with exhaust and rain. The hooded figure crouched lower, almost invisible now in the crowd. The man noticed a subtle scratch on the kiosk glass, new and sharp. He realized he was trapped between curiosity and overwhelming dread. The neon lights reflected off puddles in surreal, chaotic patterns. The hooded figure's eyes seemed alive, following every subtle movement. He swallowed hard. The city sounds overwhelming, but somehow muted. The young woman's bracelet jingled softly, a chilling contrast to tension. The man stepped slightly closer, heart hammering and senses sharp. The shadow seemed to pulse, alive, almost breathing with intent. The metallic tang lingered in the air, impossible to ignore. He realized the hooded figure had planned something far beyond theft. A distant scream echoed faintly, a haunting signal he could not place. The neon signs buzzed above, casting chaos and tension in equal measure. The man's instincts screamed danger he could not yet understand fully. The hooded figure crouched near the kiosk, still, silent, unstoppable. The crowd moved around them, unaware of the silent threat near. The air felt thicker, heavier, almost impossible to breathe properly. The metallic tang of fear mixed with city grime around his nostrils. He knew this night would not end without shocking consequences. The neon lights flickered again, shadows twisting in impossible ways. The man's gaze returned to the watch, irresistible and dangerous still. The hooded figure had vanished into shadow, once more silently. A chill ran down his spine, leaving a feeling of unfinished dread.